Thank you for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We are committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, regulatory actions, and political maneuvers in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact your freedoms.
Please support the State of Freedom by becoming a monthly supporter or member of the Warrior Circle, or by advertising your business, your nonprofit, or your event with us. Go to freedomstate.us. We are bypassing the mainstream media cartel and the establishment political parties in Louisiana and coming directly to you, spreading the uncensored voice of freedom across Louisiana and beyond. Fuego, it's just unbelievable. Whether it's the flame-grilled carne asada or a signature mango margarita. I had one of those too. They're serving up a literal feast of freedom at Calle Fuego. It's just extraordinary. I love the owners, Andres and Jose. They run such a great restaurant. The service is extraordinary. The atmosphere is great. So if you're in Pineville and the Alexandria area or passing through, or if you live there, go to Calle Fuego and tell them the State of Freedom sent you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the State of Freedom, where we are grounded in faith in the Constitution. We're committed to giving voice to the truth, living with courage, and taking action. It's Thursday. It's April 2nd, 8 a.m., and we're so happy to be with you. I am Danielle Walker, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, the chief watchdog of Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, Chris Alexander, and we are coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network, on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. Please take a second. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, share with your friends. We've got a lot on the agenda today, and some of the things we're going to be talking about are, one, we have Commissioner Tim Temple coming in at about the 20-minute mark. We are going to be talking about, Chris and I haven't gotten over HB 7, so we're kind of doubling down on that. We have some other things we want to make sure to go over so the public's aware of them, because I think it's important to highlight some of the way that different legislators responded, and some really compelling testimony from the public. So we will be getting into that. So please stay tuned. Please be in the chat, and we look forward to engaging with you today. And remember, you can always catch us later or send to your friends our audio-only podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or you can send us via those platforms, I guess is the best way to say it. Something like that. Anyway, it's Thursday. It took a lot to get to Thursday, but we're hanging in there.
We are roaring across Louisiana like a wildfire.
Yeah, we are. Let me read the scripture of the day, and that'll put us in a good frame. The scripture today is 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 14 to 17. And it says, God always makes his grace visible in Christ, who includes us as partners of his endless triumph. Through our yielded lives, he spreads the fragrance of the knowledge of God everywhere we go. We have become the unmistakable aroma of the victory of the Anointed One to God, a perfume of life to those being saved, and the odor of death to those who are perishing. The unbelievers smell a deadly stench that leads to death, but believers smell the life-giving aroma. And who of us can rise to this challenge? For unlike so many, we are not peddlers of God's word who water down the message. We are those sent from God with pure motives, who speak in the sight of God from our union with Christ. And Jesus taught us that he is the way, the truth, and the life. So for those watching or listening who have faced attacks for speaking the truth or for living righteously and for making very different choices for ourselves or for our families than other people around us, this passage explains why we may have faced some persecution in those arenas. It's because what we carry, it's because of our union with Christ, our Savior. And we know that union and that what we carry is life-giving and pleasant to those who love Jesus, who love the truth, who embrace the truth. But the confident hope that we have in Jesus is also repellent. It's a warning and even a threat to those who hate the truth, to those who are deceived, and to those who are in rebellion. In fact, I was listening to the Lord yesterday, and He told me that telling the truth is an act of war. Isn't that incredible? Telling the truth is an act of war. So, look, the Apostle Paul asks us in this passage, and I echo him, who of us can rise to the challenge? And I know you can, and I know we can together as we fix our eyes on Him, as we refuse to partner with fear, as we reject every instinct to change our stance or our decisions to please men instead of God. He will empower us, He will strengthen us for every good work He has planned for us. So let us be very bold and courageous, and walk in the grace and authority the Lord Jesus has given us.
And we are not peddlers who water down the message. I love that. We are not peddlers who
Isn't
water
that
down the
great?
message. And quite frankly, Danielle, the people with whom we are allied throughout the state on a number of important issues are also not peddlers who water down the message. And you're so right. We
Yeah.
live in an age in which simply speaking the truth is an act of revolution. And it's extraordinary that the forces of anarchy and the forces of lies and evil would view speaking the truth as an act of revolution. But we are going to continue to speak the truth. And God, we've met so many people who have been on our show and just going around the state and talking with people who just refuse to water down the truth because we owe it to the citizens of Louisiana to tell the truth. And we're going to tell the truth. I would
Yeah.
rather not have a statewide podcast. I would rather not have LaCag if one of the conditions was, well, you have to sort of water down the truth. You can't really tell the whole truth and you have to sugarcoat it and make it sound like it's something that it's not. I would say, well, you can have it because it makes a mockery of everything that we're trying to do. If we cannot tell the
Yeah.
unadulterated, uncensored truth, if we can't do that, it's just not worth doing at all.
Yeah. And Satan is the father of lies, Chris. So it would just make perfect sense that it's always been this way, that telling the truth is going toe to toe with the enemy, period.
Yes, and Satan, it's so powerful because Satan, he can dress up a lie so handsomely that if you're not discerning, it looks like the truth, and it's very
Yeah.
seductive, but it's a lie. And you know, the most pernicious lie, Danielle, and my dad used to tell me this, the most pernicious lie in the world is the lie that has a kernel of very scintillating truth right in the middle of it.
Mm.
Uh, those are the lies that are not only hard to discern, but hard to resist because they do have a
Yeah.
kernel of truth in them.
Yeah. And you know what I'm reminded of, Chris, while we're on this, is that just my experience at Pfizer, and I know I've told this story a number of times, but I was so struck by how the messaging going out from Pfizer when I worked there at the beginning of COVID and how it evolved over time to suit their financial purposes. And I asked someone in senior leadership, do they laugh at us behind closed doors as they make up all these lies, or do they believe them? And he was shocked by the question, and he said, it's crazy. They believe them. So I think it's also worth us remembering that once you believe that kernel of truth that's in the lie, you accept the lie as a whole, you take it as your own, then you really do start believing the lie. So it's so important that we remain in purity. And of course, we don't get everything right. I'm not trying to say that. You're not trying to say that, Chris. But as long as we love the truth and are willing to be teachable and willing to reevaluate our positions on things, I think that's just really important. And it just means that we're going to be less of a target for deception, I guess, or less of a vessel for deception, certainly.
Yeah, excellent point, Danielle. And you know, and we have to just always remain humble and recognize, as you said, we're not going to get it all right all the time, by no means.
Yeah.
But one of the things you said a minute ago is that, about when you start to embrace a lie as truth, it can be very, very difficult psychologically to admit that I've been wrong about this. I was wrong. I was seduced and I
Yeah.
embraced a lie and I don't want to embrace a lie anymore. And frankly, it's very hard to, to, to divest oneself of something that we've believed for a long time when we find out that it's false. It's hard for individuals to do that, and it's hard for institutions to do that.
Yeah.
In the case of carbon capture and sequestration, or anything else, for institutions who've embraced something that is a complete and total lie, when you really peel away all of the attractive masquerades that they have surrounding it.
Yeah.
But that's our job. Our job is to peel it away and find out what is the real truth here. And that's what we're going to do. And it's one of the it's just great to be able to have all of the video of the hearing on the carbon capture and sequestration, because when you go back and review that, as you and I have, it really reinforces the fact that we are on the right side of this.
Yeah.
And I believe that very, very deeply. And some of their own words, the opponent's own words, some of the exchanges in that committee, and we're going to play a number of those today, evidence that very, very powerfully. So
Yeah.
even though HB7 went down in that committee, Danielle, let me tell you, it is a gold mine for our argument. And I hope we have a
Yeah.
lot of viewers today who are able to take a look at this.
Yeah. Rachel in the chat says light shall always overcome darkness. And Lynn says, as hard as it was to watch the bad actors in government yesterday, it was revealing it was a revealing of the minds, hearts, and positions of those holding a seat of government when they swore to protect the public trust. Yes, Chris, these are rights given to people. I'm not sure if I understand that. There might be a typo in there. And Rachel says the truth is that our Louisiana Constitution has been compromised by our own lawmakers. So true. So true. And speaking of compromise, we got great news about a woman who refused to compromise, Tina Peters. This morning, her clemency appeal will be decided on in the Colorado Court of Appeals at 9 a.m. Colorado time, so 10 a.m. Central. The oh shoot, I'll drop the article in the chat. Hopefully, let me see if I can grab it here. But y'all just be prayerful for that.
Yeah,
And
everybody take a minute and pray for Tina Peters, who,
yeah,
without
oops, I'm
question,
sorry.
was persecuted for trying to preserve the truth about the vulnerabilities, and really the deliberate fraud being perpetrated in our election system. And she is a true American patriot, again, who is being persecuted by criminals for wanting to protect and preserve a core right in the country that we have. She's paid a heavy, heavy price. So we pray for an outpouring of God's mercy and justice on her today.
Yeah, we do. And why don't I'll just pray for her quickly right
Yes, do that
now.
now.
All right, Jesus, thank you. Thank you that the appeals court was much more fair to Tina than any other court she's faced to date. And I just pray that you would set the captive free today, Lord, that she would be, that justice would prevail, that not only justice, but restitution would come to her, and that she would be free this weekend to worship you outside of prison, and that she would be positioned for the work that you have for her, which we know is the continued work you have for her is to free our country, from the election sham that we've endured unknowingly for so long. But now that our eyes are open, we ask you, Lord, also to pave the way for righteous elections. but free our sister Tina today. Amen.
Our Lady Queen of Peace, pray for us, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And I just want to take a minute, Danielle, also just to thank all of the people who we've met on in whatever battle we're fighting for the Constitution in Louisiana. Some of the finest people that I've ever
Yeah.
met. You know, when my brother Royal ran for Attorney General back in 2007, he went all over this state. He got into the runoff, and then because the Republican establishment did not back him in the runoff as they said they would, he lost in the runoff. But he used to go to all of the rural communities. He went everywhere.
Mm.
And he used to say that if you're ever in a dogfight and you ever need people to stand with you in a righteous fight, don't go to the urban communities, go to the rural communities,
Yeah.
because those people will stand. Their word is their bond and their oath, and they absolutely will give all. They will give all if they believe in you. In my
Yeah.
own experience, going to a lot of rural communities and talking about this issue of carbon capture and sequestration and meeting all of these people has only affirmed that. They are the heart, the lungs, and the lifeblood of this state. And I have such admiration for for the farmers and for the rural communities, the landowners
Yeah.
who I've met. They're just extraordinary, extraordinary people.
They are. They are. They are what makes our state great in so many ways.
Absolutely.
Chris, why don't we talk about one bill that we had mentioned on Tuesday? It was SB 396 by Heather Cloud. You went and testified against it. It was the bill where she was trying to make it so that the children in custody of the Office of Juvenile Justice had to have their review hearings made via Zoom instead of in person with a judge. Would you talk about how that shook out?
Sure, and I think everybody can appreciate this. Our youth is troubled. Many in our youth are troubled, and
Yeah.
we have a juvenile criminal justice system that is very active, to say the least. And people who are in the custody of the juvenile justice system, young people, are have been custodially arrested for crimes, and sometimes for very serious crimes. Most of the time, it's young men, between the age of 16 and 15, 16, 17-year olds. And right now, when they are in custody, it requires a regular face-to-face meeting with the juvenile court judge. And as a former CASA volunteer, I know how powerful that interaction can be with a judge, a juvenile and a judge. And for many of them who don't have a father, who don't have a father figure, it is the only opportunity that they have to have physical contact with an authority figure, someone who represents accountability, someone who represents right and wrong, someone who is able to admonish them about their behavior and their conduct. And
Yeah.
that physical interaction is extremely essential on the road to rehabilitation, on the road to changing their ways as they're on the cusp of adulthood. Well, this bill that was brought would have allowed all of these meetings during the course of the case to be held virtually, just by like a Zoom call with the judge. And I'm like, and the reason why it was offered was because really what they were saying was because it's a burden and it's an inconvenience, administrative inconvenience on the state. And I'm
Yeah.
and I'm thinking to myself, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is your job. Obviously, we all have a vested interest in making sure that these young people are rehabilitated and that they do change their ways going into adulthood. And yet,
And
you're trying to minimize. You're trying to eliminate one of the primary tools of that very process. So we opposed it. She amended the bill to allow face-to-face meetings once every 6 months, I guess it is. So the bill is being amended, but the bottom line is, I thought it was unfortunate that even be that effort to begin with. I thought it was terribly, terribly misguided.
yeah, and Chris, my the other thing about that is a lot of those kids were raised by video games, raised on screens, and so you think part of the reason they're in this position is because they didn't have physical human contact with an authority figure. And so what you're going to do is you're going to have the authority figure be on a screen. That doesn't make any sense.
It makes absolutely no sense. And the only proffered explanation that they gave was that, well, this is an inconvenience to the state, basically. Well, I don't care if
Yeah.
it's an inconvenience to the state. It's your job. Oh, and they were talking about resources and costs. And I'm like, don't even get me started on your resources and on
Yeah.
your costs.
Somebody
Do a
remind me where
meaningful
Doge is.
Yes, do a meaningful Doge audit, which you've never done, after the governor, with great fanfare, announces the establishment of the Louisiana Department of Governmental Efficiency, which is not only has not been efficient, it's done little or nothing. And secondly, start consolidating the 500 boards and commissions in Louisiana. You don't think there's any waste in there or duplication of services there? There's so many things that could be done. And it seems like the only place where they want to try to pinch pennies or on things that really matter, but they'll
Yeah.
squander millions and millions and millions on things that we don't even want so they can perpetuate their regulatory structure and burdens and bureaucracy on the citizens of Louisiana. I think it's absolutely infuriating.
Well, that's a brilliant point, Chris, because you think about it, really what they're doing is pinching pennies on the children. So if you look at the Bessie election where they're, trying to save $5 million for a problem that they created, Bessie is the future education direction of this state. It's the future, it's the future of our children. And so is this, right? So is this. There are I'll tell you, there are probably 10 to 1 criminal justice bills that are cracking down on minors. And I've only seen one, Chris, so far that's been about rehabilitation.
It is unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely unbelievable. And we're going to have a show, Danielle, one day simply dedicated to some of the criminal legislation in the legislature. Not only now, but we can talk about the criminal session in 2024.
Yeah.
Every single thing they file is designed to make it appear as though we're really, really tough on crime in Louisiana. Well, that's very low hanging fruit, okay? We have a constitution that we have to protect and defend. And just because we're conservative Republicans, I mean, indispensable to being a conservative Republican is honoring and reverencing the Constitution. And we are not cafeteria, we are not buffet style constitutionalists, Danielle, where we go through the line and we pick what we want and we put back what we don't want. That's not how you do it. Either you
Yeah.
reverence the Constitution in spirit and in letter, or you do not. And we do, and we take it very, very seriously. And we're going to call out things that maybe reflexive conservatives think are great, great things so they can beat their chest on crime that are not going to achieve anything, particularly if it violates the Constitution or violates fundamental fairness. That's
Yeah.
why people listen to our show, and we're going to continue to do it.
Yeah. And Chris, Commissioner Temple's here, so let me bring him in.
Yeah.
Oh, Commissioner. Hey,
Good
Commissioner.
morning.
Good
Hey,
morning.
Tim.
You're live. Thanks for joining
All
us.
right. How are you?
We're great. How are you doing? Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday to you.
Yeah, it
Holy
feels like
Thursday.
it
Happy
feels like it
Holy
was Sunday
Thursday,
an hour
exactly.
ago. Yeah. Well, it's good to see you, Tim. Thank you for joining us for a few minutes, sir.
No, glad to be able to participate. I always appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we love
Yes, sir.
having you. We know that it's been a busy time. You're probably up to your eyeballs in legislation like we are, but we thought maybe you could just give us an update on how things have been going with regard to insurance since we last had you. What's the progress? Are rates going down? Are new companies coming in? Do you have some data to kind of point to progress for us?
Sure. Let's just give you kind of an update on the marketplace first, and then we can get into kind of where we are with
Okay.
the legislative session. But we've recently issued a couple of press releases showing that I think we're now up to 39 companies that write private passenger auto, so vehicles that you and I drive, right, have taken rate decrease. So that's 35, 39 companies that have filed for rate decrease that that auto drivers, policyholders will see over the course of like the next 12 months. So as your policy renews,
Okay.
or if you shop and move to a different company, you'll be seeing some reduction there. It's about $350 million less that you and I and your viewers will be paying less
Wow.
for our personal auto insurance. That's $350 million that we're able to spend somewhere else, which is good news. I don't want to call it savings, right?
Right.
Because we're not going to, in this current, environment, it's not savings. It's going to have that money
Let's
has
just
to go
call it
somewhere else.
let's just call it reduced pillage.
There you go. But it's $350 million less we're paying to insurance companies, which I think is great news for consumers. We're going to continue to see more of that. And none of this is because of the legal reform that was passed last year in 2025. Most of that has not even most of that has just become effective, 3 months ago. So I still expect more of that to come in the future, especially as this reform starts to kick in and have the intended effect. What we didn't see and haven't seen is a reduction on commercial trucking, commercial auto.
Okay.
That's the plumbers, the heating and air guys, that's loggers, truckers, 18-wheelers, all transportation, commercial transportation. Those rates are still going up because, quite frankly, the claims are still climbing in those for those people. And I think you and your viewers know that most of those companies carry much higher limits, right? $1 million, 3 million, 5 million, whatever their requirement is. So whenever they're involved in an accident and they get sued, and that happens a lot to them because they have these high limits, they're always going for the, whatever that maximum number is. And so there's a lot of, it's not so much frequency, it's a severity issue. That's why we got legislation,
And
which I'll talk about in a minute, which will continue to help combat some of the abuse in that system. On the homeowner side,
is
I think
there
we've had,
any,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
just a quick question for you. I haven't seen any news that illegals are driving commercial trucks so much in Louisiana. I haven't seen a lot of, news about accidents that way. Would that be a contributing factor to the rates and the accidents in Louisiana? Do you have any insight into that?
Well, certainly it would be a contributing factor if an accident occurs and you've got a legal driver that was behind the wheel. Insurance companies don't track that information, as far as the accident, whether the driver was illegal or illegal. At least they don't in Louisiana. I don't know that
Okay.
they do it nationally anywhere. I don't. I certainly see it in the news on occasion. Does it contribute? Yes. To what degree? I think that's the big question. I would hazard a guess it's negligible,
Yeah.
but certainly it does occur from time to time. So, and there was legislation passed last year, and I think it was Representative Gabe Fervent that authored the bill that said if you were illegal, if you're illegal and you're driving involved in an accident, that you can't recover.
Well, no general damages, right?
The general, right. And
Yeah,
so, yeah,
exactly.
you can
Which is a
recover, I
huge
think,
part,
some
which is it.
medical,
Yeah.
yeah, you could get some medical,
Right.
but if a company has hired an illegal driver and they're driving and they cause an accident, I mean, I think there's still, obviously.
Well, there
you're-
certainly would be a negligent supervision claim
Yes.
there. Yeah, there's no
Yes.
question that would be they'd be much more on the hook for that. But Tim, before we go on here, the two questions. Is it possible, if in fact these rate reductions for the auto insurance is going to be reduced and will be coming down? Two questions. Is it does that have to be done at renewal, or can that be done during the term of a policy of those reductions? And number two, will Louisiana citizens actually be able to see on their premiums an appreciable reduction
Sure.
going forward?
Sure, and I appreciate both questions. The first one is a real good question because a lot of people, it goes back to expectations versus reality.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that like if an insurance company has taken a rate reduction on their premiums, it's like at the gas pump, it's going to fluctuate every time, like every month to month. And it doesn't. It impacts you when you renew your policy. And then, so whatever savings that you might see, the reduction you might see, that would be for for the next 6 month or 12-month period that you would have for your auto, and it's a
Right.
6 month
Okay.
auto term. So you have to renew or change. You could change your insurance midstream if you want to. You could cancel with whatever company you're with today. If you get another quote from a company and you like that premium, you could cancel and go with the new company tomorrow if you want to. So there is that. The second question you had, I'm sorry, Chris,
Oh,
remind me
no problem.
again.
So you're confident. So you're confident because one of the things that we hear, and the reason why I'm asking the question, Tim, is that, you have legislators and you have others saying that, the rates are coming down, they're filing for decreases, and then people go to renew their insurance, and many of them don't see a significant difference. So the question is, will there be a significant number of Louisiana citizens who actually feel measurable relief when they renew their auto insurance? That's the
Yes.
question.
And I think, obviously that's subjective, measurable certainly. Whether or not it's good is up to each
Yeah.
individual.
But noticeable.
Yeah, noticeable. Yes, I think noticeable. Over 1 million auto policies are going to be seeing a rate reduction over the next 12 months. So that's a significant number of Louisiana policyholders. I hear people say, I got a $23 a month reduction. I got a $50. I've heard people say I've saved $1,000.
That is
So
significant.
it's really all over the board. $25 a month, that's $300 a year. That's,
Absolutely.
and that's, I call that real money. It's not a dollar, so
Exactly.
people will see that. But I
So
think
it's not Tim
important.
Temple coming on here and talking about, insurance reductions, and then people are, okay, so they get 75 cents worth of relief. You're talking about a measurable, noticeable amount of relief that will be coming to auto insureds in Louisiana. And that is great news to us. Great news to us.
It is, and it's deserved. Louisiana citizens, when we're paying the highest premiums in the country, any reduction is welcome news. But, I want to make sure that Louisiana gets back down to where we should be. And when I say should be, that means that based on the frequency of accidents, we don't have more accidents in Louisiana than the national average. Believe it or not, for every 100 drivers, we have, this is the number, 2.8 accidents per 100 drivers. The national average is 2.6. So we don't have, it's not like everybody is out there getting in a wreck driving on Louisiana roads, despite what a lot of people might think. It's when we get in a wreck, we file bodily injuries twice the national average. We claim injury twice the national average, and then we litigate those 3 times the national average. And when you add in additional medical cost and legal cost to a claim, and the insurance company pays it, then we're the ones that fund that, right? Now, anytime an insurance company pays a claim, they collect that back through premiums. So when claims go up, premiums have to go up, and then claims go up and premiums go up. And so what we're trying to do is fix the system so that people aren't abusing it. They're not abusing the legal system, they're not abusing the insurance system, and they're not abusing the medical system. And get claims frequency, get claim payments, get claim bodily injury claims and litigation ratios back to other, national levels, then we'll see those premiums drop and come down to what I think people would say, that's a pretty good savings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the
In
things,
terms
Tim, oh, you go ahead, Danielle, sorry.
We'll finish up, Chris, because I was going to.
I was just going to say
subjects.
something that you had mentioned yesterday when we were talking about, and we were prepping for Commissioner Temple to come on. And we were just saying that, it's not as though Tim Temple is working always in an ideal environment to accomplish the things that he's trying to accomplish. Sometimes he's quite frankly existing in a culture of hostility, where there are people who are pursuing an agenda that is contrary to the agenda that you, Tim, have laid out, if we're going to get to where we need to be. So if what you're saying is true here, that is something that's been accomplished often against some pretty hostile winds. And I think that the citizens and the viewers absolutely need to know that. It's not like you're walking into work every morning and the scenario is exactly that you have to work with is exactly the way you would want it to be. Yet you appear to be moving forward and accomplishing some things, and having, quite frankly, to navigate a pretty delicate political climate at the same time. So definitely does not go without notice, sir.
Well, look, and I appreciate that, but, and I'll tell you, Chris and Danielle, my agenda is for the people of Louisiana. I want people paying less in premiums. I want them paying fewer dollars to insurance companies and keeping more in their pockets to spend elsewhere. And I'm fighting, quite frankly, a few people, relatively speaking, a few industries, a few businesses that profit tremendously off of a system that is out of balance. And so you've got a few individuals that are making just a amazing, embarrassing amount of money off the backs of you and I and all your viewers through these premiums and through this claims process, abusing the claims process in Louisiana. And that's what I signed up for. It's sometimes it's it's a little bit more difficult than others, but I walk into this office every day fully charged up, ready to go and try and make a difference. Not for me, but for the citizens, because I truly, where I sit, I can see it is out of balance, and it's not operating the
Yeah.
way it should in our state. And
Yeah.
there's some pretty hostile people on there. I know y'all saw, last year where and the information's still up. They're attacking me personally. They're attacking, my putting my home and my address and pictures of my house out there because they want to drive,
Unbelievable.
they want it to be very uncomfortable. And that's okay because I'm good at feeling uncomfortable knowing that I'm fighting for the people of Louisiana.
Absolutely.
Amen. And thank you for that, Tim. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
The people, I hope the people who are watching feel that, because there's so often such a big disconnect from what's happening in Baton Rouge to what we're feeling in our homes and in our lives. So I hope
Yeah.
that comes across. Well, I certainly do think it comes across to the people who are viewing. So anyone watching, please share this with your friends and family who need to see this. And speaking of things they need to see, Tim, your fortified roof program. I have had some firsthand experience with it. I've heard some firsthand accounts. People are really seeing benefits from this. They're really being able to take advantage of some credits from their insurance company or rebates from their insurance company. Would you talk about what it is and and how people can take advantage of it? Because I think it's really important. People perish for the lack of knowledge. So if people can take advantage of this, by all means, we want them to be able to.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning the Fortified program. It is a tremendously popular program. We have in the last 27 months, we have helped people get, we've helped almost, it was a little over 4,300 homeowners now have fortified roofs through the Louisiana Fortified Grant Program, which we administer here at the Department of Insurance. But these are dollars that the legislature has allocated to us. So I don't want anybody to think like this is, Tim and LDI's money. That's actually our money as taxpayers that has helped people put a fortified, retrofit their roof. It strips an existing roof off and puts on a fortified roof. You can receive a grant up to $10,000 to do that. Last year, I asked the legislature to change the funding stream. So now what we've done is we've taken a small, not even it's a fraction of a percent of the premium tax that we collect, that you and I as homeowners pay, and we pay a premium tax, and we're taking a sliver of that, and then we also raise the fees on the insurance sector, the insurance industry, insurance agents, brokers, licensed adjusters, insurance companies, everybody that we license here at the Department of Insurance. We increase the fees like $7 a year is what it amounted to. So we now have, going forward and starting in July of this year, we'll have about $30 million. So that's 3,000 roofs that we will be able to help every single year going forward on that. In addition, to those 4,300 roofs, another, let's see, 5,000 people have put a fortified roof on themselves. They were either building a home or replacing their existing roof and said, I want to put a fortified roof on. So we have 11,000 fortified roofs in Louisiana today after 27 months. We're the fastest growing state in the country for fortified roofs. And quite frankly, look, 2 million Louisiana citizens live within 50 miles of the Gulf. So that means that all of those people, whether they're living in a single dwelling, single family dwelling, or a multifamily, an apartment complex, those properties are within 50 miles of the Gulf. So they're all going to be subject to hurricane force winds. We, quite frankly, need to build more resilient properties. Fortified roofs is a key to that. And so we're going to continue to push for legislation that promotes that. There is also, if you choose to put a fortified roof on yourself, you can get either up to a $10,000 tax deduction or a $10,000 tax credit. So those are two programs that help, again, incentivize homeowners to do fortified. And when you put a fortified roof on, Danielle, you get a discount from your insurance company. Every admitted company has a filed discount with the state of Louisiana. And actually last month, I guess it'd be last month now, I issued a bulletin setting benchmarks for insurance companies to increase what those fortified discounts are going to be. So starting in January of 2027, you're going to see those discounts come up significantly if you put a fortified roof on. So you're going to save money there. You also get peace of mind, knowing that if your shingles stay on your roof and your contents stay dry, when you return to your home, if you had to evacuate from a hurricane, the odds are that your roof is going to be intact and your contents are going to stay dry. That means that's all you need is utilities to get back in your home. It lowers the cost of the loss, which is good for you and I, because that means insurance companies pay out in less money, means they charge less in premium. I can tell you, it's so popular. Last November, which is when we did the last round, we had 500 grants that were made available. We had over 10,000 people put in, put their name in the lottery to get those 500 grants. So it's a very popular program, and we're going to continue to promote and try and get as much money as we can for it.
And Tim, this is something that's not necessarily, it does have some retroactivity to it, right? So if you put in a fortified roof in the last, I don't know what the period of time is, 5 years, maybe you just need an inspection, I'm not sure. But this isn't just for people who are replacing their roof right this minute.
It has to be it's an IBHS fortified roof. It's not Louisiana building codes. Louisiana building codes are below the fortified roof standard. The fortified roof it's a very particular, it uses a higher wind rated shingle. It uses ring shank nails, and then there's a waterproof barrier that goes in, and it has to be documented throughout the entire process to ensure that the roof was installed properly. And this program only started 2.5 years ago, so there weren't fortified roofs prior to, I guess that would be October of 2023. So it has to be an IBHS, which is, I'm going to catch myself now, International Building Home Safety Association, which created this fortified roof program. And
it's volunteer, Tim. This is a purely voluntary program.
It's a voluntary program, correct? Yeah, you submit when we get our next round of funding, which will be July. Hopefully the legislature will find a little bit of money so we can keep going between now and July. But if not, July will be the next. You voluntarily, so you have to own the home. It has to be your primary residence, I guess I should say. It has to be where you have your homestead exemption. It can't be a camp or a second home or investment property. It has to be your residence. And then the roof also has to be, it can't be, if it's a 100-year-old house, it's probably not going to qualify. An inspector has to come out and make sure that the roof can be fortified. So there's a process to ensure that the money is going where it's supposed to go.
So you have the program, Tim, on the one hand, which a person can apply for a grant to get this done, to get the fortified roof. But there's also a bill I want to get your thoughts on in the legislature now. I think it's by Kirk Talbot. And if I'm reading this correctly, does this bill, if it becomes law, require anybody in Louisiana who replaces their roof to replace it consistent with the fortified roof standards, which obviously are much, much more expensive, or are people still allowed as long as their roof is consistent with the building codes in Louisiana, can they do that? Are they obligated to replace their roof with the standards under the fortified roof program?
Right. And again, Chris, I appreciate you bringing that up because I think that is it's a bill that either people are going to really like it or really oppose it. I think there's no middle ground on this. And from what and I've had conversations with Senator Talbot about this, I'm supportive of requiring fortified roofs in certain areas. In coastal, I think it doesn't need to be a statewide program, in my opinion. It needs to be focused on where you got the majority of the population that is going to be, that could experience these hurricane force winds. And I'm told that the building code, the Louisiana, and we have statewide building codes, so we already tell people to what level they have to build to. The fortified roof, from what I'm told by the contractors and the building code people, is that our building codes are about 95% of what fortified is. And so if we're that close by already telling people to what code they have to build to, I think it makes sense to let's have a conversation and say, let's bump it up to make it so that it is fortified. Because, Chris, we have a working coast. We don't have a beach coast, right? I mean, people that live in South Louisiana, deep South Louisiana, those are the men and women that support the oil and gas industry, which makes America energy independent and, our allies, less dependent on adversarial energy. Our finfish, oyster harvesters, shrimpers, they live on that coast. They have to have affordable housing in order to continue to live and work in those industries. And a key to affordable housing is building more resilient structures, mitigating against future hurricanes. And the fortified roof is that key. So,
sure. But my question, Tim,
I want people,
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you
yeah.
here. But my question is this. Assuming that there's a significant cost difference between the fortified roof, I mean, really just the golden egg of roofs, and simply satisfying the traditional building codes, if there is a significant cost difference there, and a person lives in North Louisiana and they're not participating in the fortified roof program, this is potentially thousands and thousands of dollars that's coming out of their pocket to require a government mandate that the roof they put on their house satisfies these superseding standards. And I think that is something that we have to ask whether or not the government has a role. And I know that you're a conservative, and I know that you understand very well the limits of government. And I think we have to be very careful about sweeping with a very, very broad brush. I do think there's a compelling interest, perhaps, in requiring it along the coast. I can see that. I can go with that. But a guy who's 10 miles from Oil City, Arkansas, in North Louisiana, who needs to replace his roof, and it's not being paid for by the government, it's coming out of his pocket. I mean, your thoughts? Who is the government to tell him what kind of roof he has to put on his house?
Right. And look, Chris, I think I need to make clear on that. I am not in favor of a statewide fortified roof. To your point, I don't think that someone that's up in, Claiborne Parish needs to build to a fortified standard. I think that we need to look at, again, because of the properties and the exposure on the coast, I think that we should say that, we're already telling people that they have to build to a certain level. And I don't think and right now we just have a statewide, it's the statewide building code applies to the entire state. I think we need to go back and look and create some type of bifurcated or tiered system. If you live in coastal Louisiana, you need to build to this standard because you're exposed to hurricane winds. If you live in North Louisiana, maybe we need to look at, hail resistant types of building materials to help people,
Right.
to help people with affordability. Because, and I get your point, and I think you're right. Just forcing somebody to do it and incurring this incremental increase, that might not be the best solution. But however, if building to a fortified standard means you're going to save 20% on your homeowner's insurance going forward, I think most people will say, yeah, I want, I'll do that,
Sure,
especially
but
when
it
you're
should
in the
be,
process.
but it should be something I think that is encouraged to do. I'm very skeptical of the government mandates. But as I said, Tim, down in South Louisiana, I think that the government would have a compelling interest in doing that, because if you don't, and your house is less protected, and you have a lot more damage, and the insurance company is therefore paying out much bigger claims, well, that has a collective effect on all of us. So
Yeah.
I understand I get that.
Yeah. And again, if you do put that fortified roof on, you can benefit either through the tax credit or a tax deduction. So if there is that additional cost, but I think you have to weigh it too. And I'll give you an example. In Texas, there are, I think it's 13 counties in Texas that are on their coast. And if you build a home, if you do not build they've got, a wind tier, for hurricane exposure. If you don't build to that level, let's just call it fortified. Let's just say it's Texas fortified. If you don't build to Texas fortified standard, you can't buy wind and hail coverage through the Texas wind pool. So like, you can build your house, you can live on the coast, don't expect to be able to buy insurance. That, I don't want people to have to go through that choice in Louisiana. Because I want people to have insurance, because quite frankly, we need it. We need that financial security when something happens to our property. If there's a way we can bridge it so that we can get people to fortified without a huge financial burden and stair step it over years, I think that's the path to go. I don't know exactly. I'll tell you this: Alabama has been doing this for 12 years. And they required, and they've only got two, they call them counties everywhere else, right? They've got two counties that touch the Gulf. They put in a requirement that any new home being built had to go to fortified standard. They did that over a decade ago. Alabama now has about 60,000 fortified roofs, the most in the country. If you go buy a home on the coast in Alabama, your insurance is much more affordable there than it is if you're same proximity to the Gulf here in Louisiana. So it does work. It takes time. I don't want to just flip a switch and say everybody has to have a fortified roof. I don't think that is big government right there. And I
Yeah,
certainly,
that's the concern.
I am a less, not more government, but this is one where if we want to continue to protect the people that live and work in South Louisiana exposed to hurricane winds, fortified is the key solution to making homeowners insurance affordable.
Right.
And Tim, just on that point, I'd love for you to come back to Terrebonne because, and I may be speaking out of turn, and if anybody is watching who's in Terrebonne and can correct me, go ahead and correct me. But my understanding is the requirements for commercial properties changed maybe during or after the Ida timeframe. A lot of commercial buildings on the east side of Terrebonne were anyway remain vacant because I think those the people who own those properties can't get insurance. So I'm not exactly sure if I'm speaking to this correctly, but some of the requirements have made it very difficult for commerce to re-engage in the South because of government directives. So I'd love maybe for you to have a conversation with someone who knows a lot more than me about this, perhaps our parish president or members of our parish council or maybe some realtors or something, to see what it is we can do, because there can't be any economic development if people can't even utilize the buildings that are sitting vacant.
No, and look, that's certainly what we don't want to happen is for buildings to fall out of commerce, because that's not good for community resiliency and,
Yeah.
keeping that group together. I'm not aware, Danielle, of any changes on the commercial building codes, but I made a note. I'm gonna look into that and
Okay.
see. I can tell you that in the commercial property space, I hear pretty consistently people telling me, "Hey, I just renewed my commercial property on my building or my retail strip mall area or whatever the commercial property is," and they're telling me they're getting reductions, and that's consistent with what I've heard from the commercial insurance companies. that are putting more capacity in Louisiana, that are doing more business and helping drive those premiums down. So, and look, I'm always want to come down if you want to set something up to come down,
Okay.
or talk, or if there's any of your viewers on here, reach out to my office and we can set something up and come down, and maybe we have a town hall, and we can focus on commercial homeowners, residential homeowners, whatever people want to talk about. I'm always I will make myself available to do that. But I will check on the commercial building codes. I'm not
Okay.
aware of a change, but that's, I can tell you there's a lot more residential homeowners than commercial homeowners, right? And we hear a lot more from those people.
That's the big Tim. Those are the big those are the big ones for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it may have something to do with flood zoning. So it may not be exactly a building
Well,
code per
and
se.
look, yep, and Danielle, look, that is certainly an issue as well. I mean, flood, NFIP, that whole thing is what a debacle that is. And,
Yeah.
I still hear people that say that they want the federal government to create a hurricane reinsurance program, and have it serve as a backstop, or, to help somehow lower cost. And I just can't imagine or envision a federal government program
No.
running and doing that. I mean, who's going to run it? The people that run NFIP? That's not
Exactly.
So,
I think FEMA
are we
just
gonna-
needs
we
to
gonna borrow
delete
some
its map.
people? Yeah, are we going to borrow people from Social Security and have them come run this stuff?
Right.
I don't want the federal government running any type of program
There
like
you
that.
go.
But flood is
Yeah.
an issue too. So
I'm with you
I'd
there.
love to come down and let's work on that.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I know that there's a lot of pharmacy and pharmacy-related health insurance bills on the agenda, even today. They've been on the agenda all week. Transparently, Chris and I have not dug into those, but we find them very important. My mom is a pharmacist at an independent pharmacy, and it is absolutely vital to our communities that we're not just overrun by CVS and Walgreens. And so many of those independent pharmacies have shriveled up and died because they have basically been bullied and boxed out and priced out of the market. I guess my questions on these bills are, will these bills bring price reductions for patients at the pharmacy level, and also for the pharmacies themselves, the independent pharmacies? Are they going to get some relief?
Yeah, look, and yes, you're right. PBM is, there's a lot of bills that started yesterday, and House insurance and Senate insurance, and there's more bills throughout the session you're going to see. There's two issues when we're talking about PBMs and drug costs. One is the independent pharmacist, which you mentioned, and that's the amount that the independent pharmacist is reimbursed whenever they fill a prescription. And last year, the House passed 474, which for the first time has given the Department of Insurance, us, the ability to go in and audit and look and see what those costs are.
Oh,
And
wow.
it created a legal structure so that we can set what, after doing an analysis, what's considered fair and reasonable. And we exercised that authority early this year. And we told all the PBMs that they had to increase the amount that they were reimbursing pharmacists for filling prescriptions. I won't get into all the numbers and all that, but we told them to increase it. They,
Yeah.
within a few days, sued. They had a judge put a temporary restraining order on my order, telling them to increase their prescription refill cost. So even though we told them to increase, that's been stayed right now, and we have to go through the legal process, which is
Okay.
incredibly frustrating. So there's that part. The other side is, I think, what you also mentioned, is bringing the cost of drug costs down for us as consumers, and that's
Yeah.
where the PBMs and the pharmaceutical companies, the negotiations that they have there is legislation to help create more transparency and regulatory authority by the department to get in there and engage in that. It is, and again, these are all kind of in flux right now. At the Department of Insurance, I'm certainly going to use the authority that the legislature gave me last year to hold the PBMs accountable to making sure that they're reimbursing at a living wage, I guess, if you will, right? A fair and reasonable amount. we also have to, then the next battle is going to be if they increase the cost, who pays for that? Does that come out of the
Right.
policyholders that are funding it? Does it come out of the PBM's operating expense? I mean, that's a whole nother level of battle that you're not only seeing at the state level, but you're seeing President Trump. And
Yeah.
he's trying to do things at the federal level to rein in some of the excessiveness that these PBMs and pharmaceutical companies are charging.
Yeah.
And I think it's compelling that you can go to a foreign country and fill a prescription for much less than you can here in the U.S. Something's out of balance there.
It's in part because we have a legalized drug cartel, and that's the PBM.
I've heard that phrase used in committee hearings.
Tim, let me ask you something. Just back for a second on the fortified roof. We
Yes,
have a chat question here for you, and probably reflects the concern that a lot of conservatives and limited government people have. And the question is, how do you or how does the state justify a tax credit for someone to place a fortified roof on their house? Why should a taxpayer pay for someone else's roof based on where they decide to live? The government should not be paying for someone's roof. They choose to live where they live, and they should pay the cost to live there. And then it says the answer people say is to help with affordability. When the government pays, affordability skyrockets. Government money increases the cost of things, not reduces. Says you can benefit, yes, on the backs of other people. This is absurd, and they should do it the way Texas does it. You pay your own way. And I think that's an expression of really economic limited government conservatism. Does this incentive in Louisiana, is it consistent with that overall philosophy?
Yeah, look. The one thing I guess I would counter is that if you wanted to put a fortified roof on in North Louisiana, you can do that, and you can apply and receive a tax credit there as well, and you would receive a discount. It wouldn't be as large in North Louisiana as it is in South because the exposure is different. But the tax credits are not limited to homes just in South Louisiana. That is a statewide benefit. Um, I- and I think, I mean, look, it's a valid question. I mean, do we want the government to incentivize people to build more resilient homes? I mean, we do things like that all the time. I mean, we could say no building codes. We could say, there's a lot of things that the government does that's designed to protect the greater good. And sometimes that's at the expense of others. I mean, that's just how it works sometimes. But I believe the fortified program is Louisiana's path to affordable insurance. It is a way to mitigate against damage. And we should do everything we can to encourage and promote that. Like I said, the men and women that live in South Louisiana, they're the ones that produce, Louisiana produces 25% of all the oil and gas in the United States. Between Texas and Louisiana, we're somewhere around 50, we're over 50%, just our two states. I could argue that people in North Louisiana are benefiting from the oil and gas that's produced by the people in South Louisiana. And guess what? Everybody shares in that cost. Everybody shares in the burden of that. And there's some things that just, again, you kind of have to lean into and do. And
Yeah, and I
I
think the
am. I'm a
balance.
smaller government. I want less government involved. I want as little as possible, but there are certain roles that it does play in helping protect the greater good. And I think this is an example of that.
There's a legitimate balancing there, but we always have to remember that individual freedom, individual choice, even the constitutional freedom to make a bad choice is protected under the Constitution. And we just, and I know that you're sensitive to that, to
Yeah.
recognize that just because the government makes a decision that a person should be doing this because it's good for them, well, that's not, as a matter of general principle, a legitimate basis for the government to get involved in
Well,
someone's life or
and, and,
decisions. That's
and
where we're
Chris,
coming from.
we've seen, not just in Louisiana, but let's focus on Louisiana. I mean, this happens around the country, but we've seen instances where, people, specific to catastrophes, hurricanes or floods, where people did not have insurance, or they built to an inferior standard, and they received more damage than people that did what they were supposed to do. And who comes in and helps? The federal government. They come in and, you built, if you built your house to a fortified standard and I live right across the street and I didn't build to a fortified standard and a hurricane comes through and your house is fine and mine isn't, guess what I qualify for? A federal, a federal handout. FEMA will come in and they'll say, hey, we'll help you. You've had some damage. You just helped me, even though I could have, and maybe I should have built a fortified, but I didn't. But your tax dollars are helping me because I didn't do what I should have. So
Yeah, there's problems with the bigger system is
yeah,
problematic for sure.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I wonder,
But it
Tim,
is
is
a
there,
fine line, and I appreciate,
yeah,
I appreciate y'all's views and your viewers,
Yeah.
and it is something that we need to be cognizant of, whatever. And I'm going to point because that's where the Capitol is right here. Whenever they're over there making laws, or I'm engaged in the process as the regulator, we always need to be mindful if we are stepping on people's freedoms and their toes. We got to keep that in perspective. What are we trying to accomplish?
Yeah,
What I
and,
don't
and
want
Tim,
that
this is
to
not
be
just about
normalized.
not just about insurance, but
Yeah.
just about bills. Danielle and I have been through about 15 or 1600 bills, and a number of them, involve government initiatives or government intrusion into people's lives, and it's generally the purpose of the legislation is good, but really it violates, I think, the principle of individual sovereignty and individual freedom. And I think by and large you would agree with us on many of these issues that we deal with in the legislature. That they're, we have to always be wary of the government involving itself in people's decisions when they should not be, and when they don't really have the constitutional authority even to do so. And then you have to balance that, of course, against doing things that are for the general welfare and do protect us, society collectively as a whole. So it's a balance for sure.
a
It's
couple
a balance.
things.
And look, and I know you and your viewers are probably very engaged, and I always encourage, be part of the democratic process. Show up at the Capitol, let your voice be heard. I think that is very, very, very important. There's a reason that these hearings are public and open to the public, and encourage people from the public to come and speak. I think that voice always needs to be there in that building.
Yeah, and a couple things. Sandy in the chat wants to know what makes that house roof fortified. I know you went through that. Would you just point her to where she can look for the details?
Yes, if you go to our website, ldi.la.gov, there's a tab on Fortified that you can click on. But I think the address is ldi.la.gov/fortified. I
Okay.
think that's what it is. But it's on our website. You can go to it and it will tell you. But I think you said Sandy. It's really it's a shingle. It's a heavier shingle designed to withstand, I think, 150-mile-an-hour winds. It's using a ring shank nail and a particular nailing pattern. It's putting on a waterproof barrier between the shingle and the decking, and then it's tying in some, I think they call it flashing, and I'm not a builder, but some flashing and drip edge, something like that, to prevent wind and water from getting up underneath the roof line as well. But that information, or at least a lot of that, should be on the website. And look, if she can't find it, call us, call the department 1-800-259-5300, and you can get to one of our Fortified Roof folks, and they can tell you as much as you want to know about it.
Yeah, and Tim, just quickly, I can really understand changing the building codes so that everyone can be on equal footing, and we're not in a position for maximal damage to some and less damage to others, and that does cause more chaos. Having lived through a pretty damaging hurricane in the last couple of years. I guess, is there a sunset mechanism for the credits? Because at some point, this should just be an insurance only issue and less of a government tax credit and grant issue.
Yeah, there's not a sunset, but there is a cap.
Okay.
And I think it's $10 million. And they've only budgeted up to $10 million worth of tax credits. So it's not a,
Forever.
uncapped, free
Okay.
flowing liability amount, unlimited liability. They did, and from, someone had recently told me the numbers of the people that utilized the credit, and it was not a big number. It was just in the low dozens, if I remember correctly. So it's not been utilized a lot. I think a lot of people take the tax deduction. They avail themselves more to that tax deduction. For what reason, I don't know. But that's something that I don't really have the stats on, because that's a Department of Revenue,
Yeah.
database.
Well, Tim, we're gonna reach out on some couple of the other items of legislation that are pending down there. Talbot's legislation. I'm going to go back and look at that again, and thank you for listening with an open mind. We do know that economically your sensibilities are conservative at heart, and it's good to have someone there who will listen to the voice of the people. And every time we've asked you to come on to the State of Freedom, you've come on, you've answered questions, and the concerns that we have are very, very real about the size and the scope of our government. And we want smaller government and more freedom. And that is the approach that we take on just about everything. And so, but again, thank you for coming on, and hopefully we can get you back on soon, maybe right after the session or even before the session ends, and have another
Look,
discussion.
we've got a long way to go between now and June 1st, so I would be
Yeah.
happy to come back on before then, give you an update on what's going on. We've got some legislation coming up next week on some general damage caps, some legal reform, third-party litigation financing, some transparency in medical billing, that kind of stuff. I would be happy to, if it's the will of you and your viewers, to have me back before, whenever you want, you let me know. And look, and Chris, to you and Danielle and your viewers, if you think that we're doing, and I say we, meaning me, here at the Department of Insurance, that is trampling on this, let me know. I truly want to know that. I mean, I think a lot of times we think we're doing what's good and best and well intended, but sometimes you can get in a vacuum if you don't hear outside views. So if
Yeah.
you think we're going in a direction that we shouldn't, I welcome that conversation, so that at least I have the opportunity to hear and see if something we need to change.
I have no doubt that you mean that, sir.
I do.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tim. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate the debate as well. I hope that you have a wonderful Easter weekend with your family and don't have to spend too much time at the building across the street.
Yeah, look, I think they took off. They're off today and tomorrow, so
That's
we'll have
right.
a little peace and quiet here. And yeah, happy Easter to you and all your viewers. And I hope everybody stays safe this weekend. And like I said, just you let me know when you want me to come back on. I'll be certainly happy to. And let's follow up on having a meeting down in Terrebonne Parish, or wherever it is you want to have it.
Great. I will follow up. For
Thank you,
sure.
sir.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you both.
Have a good one. I always love talking to him, Chris, because he is so open. And it's exactly what we were talking about with the scripture this morning, that to be teachable, to appreciate the truth. People who love the truth aren't afraid of debate, and they're
Not
not
at
afraid to
all.
be confronted,
Not at
And
all.
so I can really appreciate where he's coming from, because when my community was completely decimated by Hurricane Ida in 2021, look, FEMA is not just knocking on your door the minute a hurricane happens. Let's be clear about it. There's a lot of devastation and a lot of pain that happens before you ever see anybody from the federal government showing up. So that's a risk people have to take. Now, it's a risk people take. Why? Because insurance rates are so high. So it's a big chicken and egg problem. I don't think that there is a silver bullet that Commissioner Temple could be shooting to solve this problem. So I appreciate that he is willing to kind of grapple with the issue and talk to people and find kind of the best solution. But it may not be a perfect solution.
And if we suggest something like, it was Colonel Mark Guillory who chatted in, and that was the question
Yeah.
from him that I asked the commissioner. And we're going to follow up. And one thing I do know about him that if we reach out to him, and we reach out to Kirk Talbot or anybody else who's sponsoring similar insurance legislation, they are going to be open to our concerns. There's no question about it. And I think would accommodate those concerns. And so, very important discussion that we're having, the limits of government action, even for the best of circumstances under the most admirable pretexts versus individual choice and individual freedom, including the freedom to make dumb decisions. That's
Yeah,
kind
and
of the balance that we
it
have to
is.
that we have to make here.
It is, and I think what a difference it is to hear from Commissioner Temple and hear his open position and his willingness to revise his position versus some of the things we saw on at the hearing on HB7 on Tuesday, Chris.
Unbelievable. Can you
These
imagine?
legislators, I
Yeah.
mean, the cake was baked before we showed up. There was no amount of testimony from landowners, from subject matter experts, was going to change the minds of some of these legislators who had dug their heels so far in, and they were completely immovable. And I think that's true of all the no votes because, of course, we don't know who may have showed up. There may have been one or two who showed up who were on the fence. We don't know. I don't think so. It seems like everyone came pretty prepared on the yes vote side. But certainly, you would hope that the testimony of the people of this state that you represent would have the ability to change your heart and your perspective. But it
Absolutely.
didn't. It didn't on Tuesday.
It didn't. But there's tremendous value, Danielle, in having those hearings recorded and documented for all posterity.
Yeah.
And, we've been through them with a fine tooth comb. On the last show, we were able to show our viewers some of the exchanges that occurred there and some of the testimony. And we have some more today,
Yeah.
which I believe further militates in strong favor that this is an exercise in lunacy, this whole carbon capture sequestration scam. And I look forward to playing and commenting on some additional clips, including Gary Musgrove, who I thought was fascinating and truly, truly effective in his
Yeah.
testimony and his interchange with Jessica Eminent Domain, or as Mark Guillory might say, Domingo.
I would agree with you, Chris. And yesterday I posted something on X, which I'd love people to go and help amplify because President Trump was just talking about. It's a video clip of President Trump talking about the fact that we don't need we don't need the Strait of Hormuz because we have more than enough oil on our own. And good luck to Europe. Get your oil where you can. So if that's the case, why are we bowing and bending and scraping to these Europeans who have no other choice than to buy our LNG? I think they
That's
can't
such a great point.
it's
God, what a
just
beautiful point.
it's just unbelievable. So if I can find it, I'll put the X post in the chat so people can amplify that and make sure that certain adversarial people to this cause, to our cause of freedom and private property rights, have the opportunity to see that. But Chris,
Yeah.
why don't we start with the clips? I know basically we wanted to bring some more clips because this was a 5 hour. I thought it was 4 hours something, but it was almost 5 hours worth of hearing. And there were some excellent points made. There were some disgusting exchanges that happened. And we just want to make sure that people are aware of kind of some of those important moments that took place. So we had a lot of other legislation that we wanted to talk about, but Chris and I discussed it yesterday, and we just came to the conclusion that this issue is so important that we don't need to gloss over and run to the next thing, even though there are, as you said, Chris, at least 1,600 pieces of
Yeah.
legislation that
And
we
we can
could be
handle,
discussing.
yeah, and we can handle all of that. But this is the issue that we've said, Danielle, is probably the most consequential issue in the state. because
Yeah.
it deals with our property, it deals with our money, and it deals with our health. And we cannot focus on it enough. We cannot emphasize it enough. And we cannot expose the the 9 Republicans on that committee enough who sold the people out for various sundry reasons. And we will never stop doing that. So there we are.
Yeah. And look, I apologize if these are out of order, but this first clip is Paul Hurd, the constitutional attorney, talking about the cost of lawsuits, the cost of the kind of lawsuit that a landowner would have to bring against a mammoth company, that because it would be an issue that would ultimately be raised to the Louisiana Supreme Court. So let's look at what Paul had to say.
Particularly, I've done a few things where I've represented clients that couldn't afford to pay, that couldn't afford to protect themselves, and we've done them anyway. What y'all are going to do if you allow these carbon capture to come and say, I'll negotiate, I'll dance, but you got to understand, at the end of the day, I win. Those cases are $100,000 cases for someone who wants to fight to protect their legacy, their inheritance. Or somebody is going, because the businesses can afford it. Your common property owner, you're abandoning them in this moment of their need to simply say, I own it. If you want it, you can buy it from me at my price. And you really have to understand the power that you have over small landowners, of what you're doing to them by giving the other side the ability to take. And there is no functional ability in the blue collar, in the rural areas, to fight these suits on a constitutional issue that's going to be tried at court with experts, going to go to an appeal, and then going to go, you hope, to the Louisiana Supreme Court unless you won. You're putting a burden on those people. You're all but flushing there as it relates to the taking for carbon capture storage, which is not listed in the Constitution as a public purpose. You're abandoning the common man's ownership of his property and the ability to defend it. And I just hope that we correct it, because then it goes to the economic world, and it's only a question of price.
I think you did
So-
such a great job.
Yeah. So it is such so basically what he's saying is, if they don't pass legislation that completely repeals eminent domain in Louisiana, it's literally the difference between cutting their knees out from under them at the start of any desired expropriation process, if legislation were to pass successful, versus not passing and having a landowner have to sue and challenge an expropriation in court and litigate that case at the cost of God knows how much money, all the way up. I mean, you can bankrupt small landowners in this scenario. Paul Hurd is exactly right. And from a psychological point of view, Danielle, what difference does it make? You had these lawyers sitting there talking about how, they have these procedural constraints and time limitations. That doesn't address the substance of this. The bottom line is the law allows them to take property at some point. But Danielle, don't worry. Property owners in Louisiana, do not worry, because
Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Okay, I'm sorry. But the bottom line is this. There's a massive difference between having legislation on hand that codifies the Constitution that Mike Johnson's would have done, and simply having a Louisiana Supreme Court decision that affirms our position on this. Now, very important to have that Supreme Court precedent, don't get me wrong, but it's the difference in the statute and in that case is about $100,000 and about a year of stress and time and effort on the part of a landowner. That's the difference.
Absolutely. And this next clip, Chris, is what you were about to spill the beans on. This is the commercial attorney, the big fancy law firm, Jones Walker's response ultimately to what Paul said. It wasn't right after, but it was a little bit later in the testimony.
I've done a few things where I've represented clients that couldn't.
Sorry, that's
that's
the
okay.
wrong one.
That's
I
okay.
think that's the same one. Let me see. I might have misnamed these.
No,
Sorry
that's
about
okay.
that.
We were
doing
hustling to
this.
get it all together.
Yeah.
And you're an attorney. I'm not saying that's not correct, but out there where the landmen are, that's not correct. That's not the bullying tactics happen. We've had numerous people tell us how this actually works, and that's very intimidating to people. Who did y'all say y'all work for?
We're with Jones Walker.
Do y'all represent, I guess, people that y'all are compensated for your testimony today, basically? I mean, your job depends on this testimony.
No, I would not say my job depends on it. I get paid a salary by my employer, so I'm certainly being paid by my employer, but I'm not here on behalf of anyone. I'm here on behalf of Jones Walker.
Anyway, I thought there was one, Chris, and I thought I had it, but let me see. I think
No, we have it in there.
Unless-
Yeah, but let me address the point he's making there. Okay, yeah, you're getting a salary from your employer, from your Jones Walker employer. But guess what? You're going to be the one who is making millions off of legal fees on all of these issues related to carbon capture and sequestration. So you and your firm stand to be enriched to the tune of millions and millions of dollars because of this scam. So don't sit at that table and act as though you don't have a financial interest in this as well as everyone else. You're making 500, 600, whatever it is, dollars an hour for everything that you do. And you know, so don't be disingenuous, whatever your name is.
Yeah. And Chris, I don't think I have that right clip that I was telling you not to ruin. So if you want to go ahead and get in there and respond. So the Jones Walker response to Paul Hurd's comment about these being $100,000 cases was what?
Oh, the response is, look, have no fear. Yes, it's going to cost you $100,000 to, at least that's the value of the case when you bring it. It's what it would cost you out of pocket. While me on the other side and being paid an ungodly amount of money by these corporate polluters on my side to represent them. So I'm making money, I'm being enriched. But don't worry, because you've got the Southern Poverty Law Center that you can call or you can email and say, look, I have to file a lawsuit that's going to cost me 6 figures plus a lot of time and a lot of stress. I don't have that kind of money. I need a good lawyer. Can you help me? And I'm sure that the Southern Poverty Law Center would jump up and become just a, absolute manic producer for you in your case. Let me tell you something. That's not how it works. If you're lucky, you would get one to review a pleading. If you're lucky, you would get one to give you some guidance in how to approach this type of issue in case. But I'll tell you, for her to say that would level the playing field here is just so blatantly disingenuous that it should give landowners no comfort whatsoever. But in her view, call the Southern Poverty Law Center and everything will be okay, and they'll litigate your case for you, and you don't have a thing in the world to worry about. Blatant misrepresentation of how it actually works. And Danny McCormick and Paul Hurd were both right in pointing that out. The massive discrepancy in power here that exists.
Yeah, and I'll just correct you, Chris, because she didn't even have the backbone to call it the Southern Poverty Law Center. She called it the Southern Law Center. And another member of the public had to come back later and give testimony saying that's not the Southern Law Center, it's the Southern Poverty Law Center. You want us basically to be impoverished, so we have to go to them. Also, a lot of these landowners don't really share the same values that the Southern Poverty Law Center is promoting if you follow them at all. So I don't think that the Southern Poverty Law Center is going to be the group that's going to be jumping up and down looking to help out farmers in rural Louisiana.
Great point, Danielle. The level of organic enthusiasm for that type of case would probably not be at a premium. I agree with you when it comes to representing them. But another thing before we move to the next clip that I have to point out here, the way that they tried, the lawyer that we just saw and the female lawyer sitting, those lawyers, the way they tried to euphemize and sugarcoat eminent domain is absolutely unbelievable. That they talk about, well, we have all these limitations and we have these constraints and this, that, and the other. The bottom line is you have the right to take someone's property who doesn't want to do what you want them to do with their property. And there's no such thing as a level playing field or a hand-to-hand negotiation that is fair as long as you are carrying that bat. And everybody knows that. So you're sitting there in front of a committee and trying to lie about that or sugarcoat that. I do not think it's going to play well to the citizens of this state.
No, and it was a great point that was made, I think, throughout the hearing, Chris, which is these attorneys got up there and said, well, we have never had to use it yet. Well, no joke, Sherlock, no joke, because having the ability to take people's property is a big enough threat to not actually have to use it, right? Because you can say, hey, look, you may not know this, but we have the right to take your property if we want to. So do you want to take this low price that we're offering you, or do you want us to just take it?
God, that's so well said, Danielle.
And I think,
yeah.
Chris, a particularly disgusting example of that is one that I have here next, unless you needed to say something.
I was just going to say this very, very briefly. I'm one of 7 boys in my family, 7 boys. And, we used to come home and my dad would have he had a black belt hanging. Everybody could see it in clear view. And just a reminder to us, I have this and I absolutely will not hesitate to use it. So conduct yourself accordingly.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say he didn't have to use it. You're telling me that was not an influence in our behavior? That's what they're saying about this eminent domain. That's
100%.
how ludicrous their argument is.
100%.
So anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, let's go to this clip. This is so heart-wrenching.
To us is kind of a moot point, because it appears that the Supreme Court of the state of Louisiana has already ruled on it. So what we're saying is, if we're going to go ahead and we're going to disobey the Constitution of the state of Louisiana and we're going to continue on down this path, then we're going to have to turn around and redo all this litigation again. It seems to me it's already been settled. For the landmen, it has no teeth. We can talk about landmen doing this, landmen doing that, but there are no rules that stop them from going out. And let me tell you a specific story, and I talked to his daughter last night. Mr. Spears lives on the corner of where the pipeline is coming in to the sequestration point at the Beauregard project. He was told this man was diagnosed a couple of years ago with stage 4 cancer. Now he's into his last days. And he's trying to determine if what he's going to leave his kids is going to even be there, or if it's going to be taken by people that are going to come around and tell him. And this is what they told him. If you don't take it, then we're going to take it by eminent domain. So you might as well just take our offer. So here's a man with stage 4 cancer that feels like he does not have any other option other than change it. The one thing we need to do, and it appears to me that we've put the cart before the horse here. We're using eminent domain. We haven't even determined what the setbacks are. By the way, the 500-foot setback that is for this, the pipeline is going in now. I've got photographs if y'all like to see it. It's less than 200 or 300 feet from the house. We haven't even figured all this stuff out yet. Now we're talking about taking people's property first. It is, I heard the lady talk about going and we can go to Southern Law Center. That is called the Southern Poverty Law Center. Is that where we want to go for our court cases? Is for the Southern Poverty Law Center?
So good. I'm so glad that Katie caught that clip, was able to
I'm
clip
glad.
that whole thing.
I am too. Oh my God.
It's just so
think
disgusting,
about it.
Chris. How can these legislators look at this man in the face and say, you know what? It doesn't matter because I'm still going to make it so that these companies can take your property for economic development that is not even real economic development.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm so glad that we had that clip and that we ran it. And it's a true story. The man is dying of cancer, and he will die under the specter and under the threat of his property being taken from him. No humanity whatsoever there. It enrages me, quite frankly, all over again, Danielle. One point that I wanted to bring up, and this is probably second in line to the way Colonel Guillory handled Jessica Domingo Domain's effort to humiliate him yesterday. But did you notice that the lawyers, they tried to make this distinction? So after Paul Hurd testifies, after Woody Jenkins testifies, these are the guys who wrote these property protection amendments into our Constitution in 2006. They know the Constitution inside and out. And the lawyers, in response to that, say, well, one thing we've noticed is they're only mentioning one part of the Constitution. They're only mentioning the part that talks about expropriation or eminent domain used by the state. The part about private expropriation by private companies is in a whole new section. And they're not even talking about that. So he kept making this distinction about these place in the Constitution where public expropriation versus private expropriation is located, but he never makes any point beyond that. It's as though he was suggesting that it should be easier for a private company to take your property than for the government to take it, which is the whole purpose of eminent domain to begin with. I couldn't understand why he kept making this distinction unless he was going to make the ultimate statement, which of course he didn't do, which is that it should be easier for a private company to directly take private property than for the government alone or the government acting through a private corporation, which he knew is an absolutely ludicrous argument. So I couldn't understand why he kept making this distinction. I guess he felt like it was the only response he had to Woody Jenkins and to Paul Hurd, but that was it. And I just thought, man, this is unbelievable that this guy would be doing this.
And you know what's so gross to me, Chris? And honestly, it's just super saddening because if you think these are people that live in the state of Louisiana. These are people who probably have children. These two attorneys, but they're guns for hire. And you think about the same for industry, right? And so, look, I've sat inside of corporate America. I understand that you can really be brainwashed by talking points. You can really be brainwashed by a narrative and by a perspective for what's ultimately a financial end. And I think that if we were to strip away their fancy titles and the big fancy building that they work in, their fancy paycheck, and they were just at home and never heard of this issue before, and someone knocked on their door and said, hey, this is a situation that's happening in your state, every single one of them would be outraged. Every single one of them. Because this is a human issue. This is a personal property issue. This is a very individual issue. And to think that we could allow ourselves as people to have such clouded judgment when money comes into the picture, or when prestige comes into the picture, or when pressure comes into the picture. I mean, honestly, it's exactly what Doc Chambers talked about when he said, why would people flip? When we talked about, we were talking specifically about politicians, and he said, the acronym is MICE. I'm so glad he gave us an acronym because it means I might be able to remember it. But money, ideology, coercion, and ego are the four things that drive people to flip. So, like you said at the outset, Chris, it's so important that we remain humble. It's important that we remain, I think part of this is, I bet these people don't live in a rural setting at all. I bet they live in an urban area, and people being disconnected from the land is a big part of the reason that they can't care about this.
Yes.
They have no connection to the land. The land means nothing to them because they live on concrete.
So well said. They live in the concrete jungle, Danielle. Let me make this point too. You know, another thing that I thought was just so flagrantly misrepresented, and I think it was Representative Jessica Eminent Domingo Domain who made this point. She was trying to suggest that only $77 billion worth of 45Q tax subsidies are committed to this monstrosity. Well, the Congressional Budget Office and other official agencies clearly say that by 2042, this enterprise nationally is going to cost the taxpayers close to $1 trillion, if not more than $1 trillion, based on the cost of inflation. So don't for 1 second believe that these 45Q tax credits are not absolutely essential to the, quote, success of carbon capture and sequestration, because they are. We're paying for it. We're $40 trillion in debt, or whatever it is right now, and we can't afford this.
Well, this is as good a time as any, since you brought up Jessica Domingue, to talk or to show the clip of Gary Musgrove's exchange with her.
Loved it.
I think he handled himself very well.
Thank you. And I just want to take this as an opportunity to really kind of dispel what's being said to the public and the facts. Mr. Musgrove, you and I, once again, have never met each other. Right. However, on March 19th, you attended and you spoke at a We the People meeting in Homa. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And at this meeting, you stated that Japan is looking to export their carbon dioxide to inject in Louisiana.
Yes, you understand that they are building CO2 ships right now.
Okay,
that is when I said that. If you listen to the entire conversation, I said I am looking at information that tends to lead that Japan may be entertaining to ship their CO2 elsewhere.
So, Mr. Musgrove, is this your opinion or is this facts?
Absolutely. I said it was my opinion during that meeting.
And you might have just mixed up that we're actually exporting blue ammonia as part of our economic development to Japan. So you might have mixed that up a little bit. And just
I haven't mixed it up because they do own almost half of Haynesville Shell.
All right.
No, I'm not mixing anything
just
up.
To wrap a bow around this and to clarify, Japan is spending $5 billion on CCS to inject 240 million tons of CO2 per year. And Japan has already completed a very successful CCS well in Tamakomi. So I can't imagine why they would want to put CO2 on boats and bring it to Louisiana. But if that's your opinion, that you're going around the state and telling people, you're able to say that, but I really want the people of Louisiana to know the facts and the facts surrounding this debate.
So the facts, according to you, is that's not going to happen.
I'm just talking about facts.
Oh, no, that's right, facts. Yeah. Facts, according to you, it's not going to happen. That's what you're telling everybody. We should not be cautious to that.
The facts are that Japan has spent $5 billion.
And the fact is we should not worry about it then, that Louisiana will be fine. We don't have to worry about Japan's carbon dioxide being injected into Louisiana.
Chairman, I'm finished.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is so important here. So all Gary Musgrove was saying is that if you're building CO2 transport ships, if Japan is smart enough to know, even if they are doing some injection in their own country, if they're smart enough to know, well, Louisiana is a dumping ground for CO2. It's legal in their state. It's cheaper for us just to transport it to Louisiana and just bury it there than to do it here. Blue ammonia already has a 30% ownership interest in Haynesville shale. So why is it out of the question to think that maybe that might be part of their agenda? You know, it's unbelievable that she would make him look like, or try to make him look like he's an idiot for being concerned about this. It's just extraordinary. And also, according to what Gary told me this morning, the terrain in Japan, again, maybe they're going to do some injection there, but the terrain there is not really conducive for permanent geologic storage, not nearly the way it is here in Louisiana, which is another incentive for them to perhaps look and see about doing that here. The idea that she would criticize him for raising that as a possible concern, to me, once again, it just reflects an extraordinary degree of either naivety or ignorance on the issue.
Well, the other thing that's concerning and obvious, Chris, is that Japan is rife with earthquakes. They get earthquakes a lot. And what are we seeing in Louisiana since they've started injections for shale? We're seeing earthquakes in North Louisiana. I mean, that's not necessarily causation. It could be correlation. Maybe there's nothing there. But I don't really remember Louisiana being a state that had earthquakes on a regular basis, but we've seen several in the last month. So I can't imagine that Japan would be wanting to inject a volatile compound into the ground when they know that they already get severe earthquakes. It doesn't really make that much sense. And let's be honest, Japan hasn't been operating with good leadership for the last number of years. After their prime minister was assassinated, I think up until now they have, I think, a good premier again. So I don't think that the decisions that have been made in Japan are probably reflective of the will of the Japanese people. They're certainly not reflective of sanity because of just the natural terrain in Japan. So I don't understand what the disconnect is there.
I don't either.
But John West gave an expert statement and really backed up what Gary said. So why don't we look at that clip now?
Let's do that.
Sorry, it takes a second.
No, that's okay.
Let's see here.
Chairman, thanks for letting me be here today. My name is Robert Maddox. I'm from Boyce, Louisiana. I'm the vice president of.
Sorry,
that's okay.
this is the wrong one. Let me see if this is the right one.
That was Boo.
Yeah, I think that's our.
Chairman Guyman, committee members, thank you.
This is the right one.
My name is John West, Vernon Parish resident, 20 years. I spoke last year. Some of you may remember me, some may not. Hopefully I'm not hated yet. I'm a retired infantryman. I hold a Bachelor of Science degree in environmental management with 14 years of experience in the state of Louisiana and the federal government level as well. I appreciate the opposition's statement about land use, and it really adds a lot of punch to my statement. HB 7 is about eminent domain and unitization as it applies to carbon capture and sequestration. I recall my first engagement about a year ago. My representative, Charles Owens, invited me to a meeting at the Capitol that Brett Guyman had organized. A lot of lawyers, scientists, geologists, PhDs, and what I remember most about it, where it got a little contentious, was eminent domain. So it's not new. It's not new. Unitization will come a little later with SB 244. Land use. I bought 10 acres of property in Vernon Parish right before I went to Iraq for 15 months. I had no concept that I would be debating whether a waste product would be buried underneath my property at that point. I say waste, and I use exact scientific terms. EPA calls it supercritical phase CO2. The other stuff in there is referred to as incidental substances. It's not toxic waste or sludge. But in that final ruling, what they did is they ruled that it is a waste. That's their ruling. I submitted that to you all in your emails, so you have it. What they did is they conditionally excluded it from hazardous waste management requirements. In order to get something excluded, it first have to have been or have the potential to require management under that regulation. It's not a question of if it's a waste, it's what kind of waste. Secondly, unitization. I emailed DC&E about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4. You have that email chain in your inboxes as well. I asked 5 specific questions to Conservation Energy. And the summation of what that response was, no draft rules have been published on how it would be done. No final rules have been done. The public comment period has not been awarded or gone through. The House and Senate committees of Natural Resources and Environment have not had the opportunity to meet, debate, and provide input. But yet on April 9th, approximately 10 days from now, there will be a hearing in Caldwell Parish. We're speaking with those people. There's a very high likelihood that a unit would have to be formed. But there's nothing in place that says how it's going to be done. But we're letting them move forward. I guarantee you if that doesn't happen, the one in Vernon will.
I thought I was mistaken. I thought that he was the gentleman that had kind of come in afterwards and backed Gary up on the Japan question, because someone did do that. But his testimony is extremely compelling. It just goes to show that the government is so willing to give private companies the right to take away private citizens' property, but they have no stinking plan in any way to do it. And it is confirmed that this is a literal waste product that they want to shove under your home.
Exactly. And it also, Danielle, it just reaffirms John Westhole's statement there, or at least the last part of it, just reaffirms the complete and total lack of oversight, lack of government oversight over this process. Not only are you going to be able to do something that is intrinsically violative of people's rights, we don't really care how you do it. And that is the problem that we have, one of the problems that we have here. They are so eager to move forward and get these things permitted that they don't even have any real regulations in place. There's not a vigorous oversight structure over any of this, as John just pointed out in his testimony. So it's just frightening when you think about this.
And Chris, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but if we want to walk through a timeline of events, right, you can say 2020, the legislature was in the midst of a lot of debate about a lot of things, under a lot of pressure because of COVID. They pass the original bill that allows for private companies to expropriate people's land. That's in 2020. Shortly thereafter, I guess a few years later, 23, Jeff Landry becomes governor. He starts this lightning phase, whatever, where we want these economic development projects to have as little "quote unquote" red tape as possible, which sounds fantastic on its face. Doesn't sound so fantastic whenever it's serious hazard waste, and there's a lot of problems and questions with the work that's actually being done. They're not throwing up a mall. This isn't something that's done every day. This is relatively new technology, relatively untested technology for this purpose. And so far, it has been fairly unsuccessful, the places that they have done it. So that happened. And then if you think in 2024, they passed the legislation for these NDAs, where the governments don't have to tell the people what these private companies are coming in and trying to do. So we have a perfect storm here for why we have gotten to where we've gotten today. And what the government hasn't done is set out any parameters for how this work needs to take place. And at every opportunity there has been for them to set parameters for how this is done, they have rejected that opportunity. You even think about something as simple as solar farms. Last year, Chris, we were looking at solar farms. There was a simple bill. I can't remember who brought it.
615. HB
Was it Ray Cruz?
615, Brett Guyman's bill.
Brett Guyman. Yeah. So the bill just said, look, you got to have a plan for taking care of these things. And if a local parish doesn't want it, they don't have to have it.
And that's what
all the bill.
Representative Guyman's, yes, and that's what Representative Guyman's bill did.
And the
Danielle.
legislature said, no, absolutely not. You have to have it whether you like it or not, and they don't have to take care of it if they don't want to, because this is economic development. So
Yeah.
this is what you're dealing with on the House Natural Resources Committee. It is this
Yeah.
kind of belligerent defiance of the will of the people at the expense of the people in pursuit of fake money.
Exactly. That is exactly what is going on here. And just to be clear for the viewers, Representative Guyman's bill, HB 615, would have required that the local governments have a major hand, if not the primary hand, in the permitting and regulating of these solar facilities if they wanted to put them in their parishes. So it was a bill that would have protected local property owners and local governments. But it was killed on the House floor. It was killed on the House floor because of the vote of a number of Republicans. We've publicized those votes, and we're going to absolutely do it again. And I want to touch very briefly, Danielle, on the bill HB 461 from 2024 that allows the government to enter into these agreements and these negotiations regarding the spending of our money and to do it all in secret without disclosing any of the details, whether we're talking about the data centers, CCS, whatever it is. We fought against that bill very, very hard, and it failed on the Senate floor the first time in an 18-18 vote, and then 3 senators switched their votes, Womack, Reese, and Mike Facey, unfortunately, from no to yes, so it passed, the governor signed it. That is the statutory basis that allows these big corporations to negotiate in the dark involving the expenditure of our money for up to 2 years. And by that point, Danielle, the ink is dry, the contract's been signed, the land is taken, and they're off to the races. It is a despicable display of legislative and government tyranny in our state, that there would not be complete and total transparency to the citizens of this state when they're talking about entering into contracts that affect our land, our water, our energy, and our money. Yet we're kept in the dark for up to 2 years. And you know what the reason is? You know why they say that? Because if we didn't keep it private, then it would affect our negotiations with a corporation, because another corporation would come in or another company would come in and try to undercut their effort. Well, I don't care what they're trying to do. That's what competition is all about. Whoever has the best offer, best interest of the citizens of Louisiana and our fiscal stewardship, they're going to get the offer, and we're going to move forward. But to hide all of this from the people is, I cannot tell you how reprehensible I find this to be.
Well, there's a certain point during a negotiation or a courting process for true economic development or for the true sale of anything. There's a certain point at which the contracting becomes private. But it's not from the very beginning. You should be able to know what is on the table in terms of quote unquote economic development. And I will go back and correct my former statement. It's not fake money. It's our money. It's our tax dollars that are being used to destroy us. So I think that's just so absolutely disgusting. And Chris, why don't I know we've kept the folks on long. We've kept ourselves on long. Why don't we do this last clip and then we can come in for a landing.
Let's do it.
Let me see. These are the ones that were mislabeled, so hopefully I can get it right. I think it's this one.
Thanks for letting me be here today. My name is Robert Maddox. I'm from Boyce, Louisiana. I am the vice president of Save My Louisiana and one of the co-founders. Knew absolutely nothing about carbon capture sequestration in the roofing business. Pro-oil, pro-gas. Unbeknownst to some people, I am not a left-wing guy. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. I'm a landowner. I'm an American, most of all. And I appreciate your service to all of us. But I can tell you that I'm extremely disappointed in what I learned, because I think that you all failed to look at the Constitution. when you passed Act 61. But I want to talk today a little more because I watch these state agencies up there speaking, and they seem to be representing industry and not the people. Your actions today are going to declare whether you represent the people or you represent industry. We do want to grow. We do want economic development. But what is economic development? What I'm reading is that economic development, the proper aligned economic development strategy, should raise the standards of living, benefit the people first, protect private rights in communities, and be sustainable long-term, and be transparent and accountable. Y'all tell me one thing that's been transparent about this. There's probably 5 of you are standing in here now that said, we didn't know anything about it. I'm just now learning about this. Well, but the question is, what have y'all done about it since you've learned? I know what I've done. I didn't like it. I didn't like it because I got 11 grandkids and 5 children. I got 400 acres on a lake. I like the lake. I like to fish. I like Louisiana. This is our state. We all want it to grow, but we all want it to be here for future generations. If we make bad moves like this, are they going to stay with us from now on? If we remove the constitutional rights of people, if you remove them the right to say, you know what, you can't come with just compensation because I don't want to sell my land. You ain't got enough money. I don't want to sell it. So it doesn't matter how bad you want it. If I come to you and I want one of y'all's piece of land, and I say, you're going to give it to me regardless. I don't care if you want to sell it or not. I'm going to give you just compensation. I'm going to take you to court. That ain't the way it works. Just because they're industry and they're bigger than mine doesn't mean they have a power greater than mine. We all are Americans. This is our America. Y'all are elected to represent each and every one of us, your constituents, not industry. If industry wants to do something, let them do it. But what we failed to talk about today is pore space. What about pore space? What about these plumes? That's where your eminent domain is going to come in. You talk about nobody's been affected because you haven't injected any CO2 in the ground yet. The party just started, boys and girls. It's just started, and the land taking's just started. It's going to happen. But as for me, I'm going to go try to buy a piece of land, buy every one of these 32 units, and I'm going to leave y'all with the decision. Do you want to take it, or do you want to shut down the project? Because that's how quick it can be shut down.
Thank you very much.
Watch me go.
Thank you very much.
Save my Louisiana.
Thank you. Thank you.
He did such a great job.
He did an absolutely outstanding job, and that is such a good one to end on. Such a good one to end on, because he brought up, what if there's no amount of money that you can offer me that is just compensation? Because I don't measure the value of this third generation property that was handed down to me by my grandfather in terms of money. There's no amount of money that would ever get me to sell it. I know that's exactly how Katie's family, her mom and dad, feel about their land up in East Feliciana. You know, certain things, contrary to the perception and the vision of so many of these people who are pushing this scam, there are certain things in life, Danielle, that are still more valuable than the almighty dollar. Thank God. And Boo Maddox did a great job of pointing that out. And I have such great respect for him and all the work that he's done, you know, to raise public awareness of this issue. We have a battle ahead of us, Danielle. We are up for it, and I believe we're going to win, because when the citizens are together, an increasing number of citizens every day are becoming more and more aware of this issue, we never lose. We always win. And we're going to win here, and it's going to be sweet, sweet, sweet. And you know what else is sweet? I think the battle itself is sweet, because the reward is in the battle. The reward is in the process. The reward is in the struggle, not just in the victory at the end. And we're going to make sure that we relish every single moment, because it is a privilege to be able to fight. It is a privilege to be able to fight.
It is. And having the opportunity, Chris, to expose the opposition for their ridiculous perspectives, for their, Mark Guillory would say, treasonous perspectives, and I don't disagree with him there, for their absolute disdain for the public and the people who sent them there to serve. I think that is part of our job here, and that's part of the battle, is exposing people who are operating against the interests of the people that they were sent to serve. And that is just the core of what this entire hearing really exposed.
One of the, Julie Sauer, there was someone who I like an awful lot who put something up on Facebook yesterday that said, yesterday in that committee room, those members of the Natural Resources Committee declared war on the state of Louisiana. And I believe that that is not hyperbolic. I believe that that is true.
I believe it's true too. And I think, what does the Bible say? He who reaps the wind he who sows the wind will reap the whirlwind. I think that's what we're going to see here.
I think that's what we're going to see. And you know what, Danielle, you have an announcement to make, because I just want to say this, that, there's a line in Next of Kin where Patrick Swayze has to go vindicate a family member who's being abused by a cartel. And the guy looked at him, one of the menacing guys looked at him and said, you know what? You're not going to be able to get to us. You'll have to go through hell to get to us. And Patrick Swayze looked back at him and said, son, you ain't seen hell yet, but it's coming. And I guarantee that that's the way a lot of citizens of this state feel right now.
Yeah, I think you're right, Chris. I think you're absolutely right. And we just want to wish everybody a happy Easter. If it wasn't for Jesus, if it wasn't for his resurrection, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be happy warriors. We wouldn't be able to fight this battle for a righteous cause. So please enjoy your family this weekend. Enjoy your property this weekend, barbecue. And we hope to see you back in the chat here on Tuesday at 8 a.m. We love you all. We're so grateful for you, and thank you for your support, every single one of you. We could not do this without you. So God bless you all.
God bless you, and we'll continue to fight cheerfully, valiantly, and victoriously. And thank you, Lord Jesus. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for your extraordinary sacrifice. Thank you for standing for us in the breach, in the dark valley, alone.
Yeah.
For us. And if I was the only one on earth, Danielle, or if you were the only one here alive, he would have done it just for you. And he would have done it just for me. It's overwhelming to think about, but I thank you, Lord Jesus, for your extraordinary love and for your mercy and for your sustenance every day. So God bless you, Danielle. Happy Easter, happy Good Friday, happy Holy Week, and we shall reconvene soon.
Yes, sir. See you soon. God bless.
Thank you. Blanco Brothers has been in business in Louisiana for about 30 years now. I have personal experience with this company, and I know others who have as well. If you have a business or a home and you've got roofing, gutter, sheet metal issues at all, one number you need to know, and that's Blanco Brothers Construction. He will treat you right financially, and he will take very good care of you with regard to the quality of the service that he provides. I cannot recommend Blanco Brothers Construction more highly enough. Memorize the number 225-226-4222. Blanco Brothers Construction, the very best in the business. Zeppelin is the best kept secret, but because of us, it's really not a secret anymore. Anybody who has not been to Red Zeppelin on Perkins Road in Baton Rouge, you're truly missing out. The best environment, the best service, and the best pizza in the state of Louisiana. Go to Red Zeppelin today. Tell them the State of Freedom sent you.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Any follow-up actions, resources, and links to our sponsors will be in the show notes. All calls to action can be taken at lacag.org. That's LACAG.org.
To learn more about our work, become a monthly subscriber, supporter, or advertiser at freedomstate.us. The State of Freedom, the #1 conservative podcast in Louisiana.